Hi everyone, hope you're all well. I'm recording this video on a Sunday afternoon, and as you may be aware, Boris Johnson is going to be speaking to us all later about what the next few months or weeks and months are going to look like for us. And as a result of that, I woke up this morning full of anxiety. I had loads of nervous energy in my body, and my thoughts, I had a million thoughts going around my brain all at once. So my own practice this morning was based around this idea of letting go of that nervous energy. So letting go, but a sense of gathering my thoughts and gathering back in order to give me a bit of focus to see what I need to do, or to help me through the next steps, whatever that might be. And I'd been spending this week really thinking about what to offer you guys in terms of a video and what theme around the practice. And I actually thought sharing this practice that I did with you this morning would be quite a useful one. So in terms of equipment, all we're going to need is a blanket for relaxation at the end as usual, and a bit of a raise. So it could be a yoga block, it might be a couple of thick books, maybe a small stool, but it just needs to be enough so that you can raise one foot up onto it and let the opposite leg sway back and forth with enough clearance from the floor. So a chair will probably be a bit too high for what we're going to do today. So something that's going to give you a little bit of a raise from the floor. And that's about it. We're going to be working through quite a lot of standing poses, sort of working quite slowly but repetitively, and also going to be having a little look at the sun salutation sequence in that as well. So I hope all that sounds appealing. So we're going to start from standing today. So I'm going to ask you to come to stand on your mat, feet around hip distance. You might want to come even wider with the feet sort of slightly wider than the hips to give you a really firm base here, and let the arms drape at the sides of the body. Let the knees soften, let the hips rest back. And beginning to let the breath find its rhythm and settle. So we're going to do a little bit of work with the WHO breath to start our practice today from standing. So I think we've done the WHO breath a couple of videos ago, but I'll remind you of it just in case. So the WHO breath is the one where we inhale through the nose, and then as we exhale, we let that exhalation come out through the mouth, but we round the lips and we make a bit of a sound as we let the exhalation come out. So a bit like when we listen to the sea through a shell. And we're going to do 10 rounds of that, like I said, from standing. But if you would prefer to do it sitting or lying down, that's absolutely fine. Get yourself set up in that position. And I like to count on my hands, so I'll let my fingers draw in towards the palm, so making a loose fist. And then as I exhale, I let one digit go, and I keep going till all 10 fingers are free. So you can work at your own pace, or you can watch my fingers, or you can let the eyes close. It's entirely up to you. So giving the breath a bit of a chance to settle. And like I say, you can work with the eyes closed or open, that's entirely up to you. And then eventually, next time we exhale, we're going to let it come out through the mouth, we're going to round the lips, and we're going to make our WHO sound. You're still working, continue with that. Once you've completed, letting the breath simply come in and out as it normally would. And feel how that's landed in the body, the effect that's had on the breath. So we're going to come to do a little bit of movement in the limbs, the arms and the legs. So let's step the left foot back. So stepping the left foot back, doesn't need to be a huge step back, just a little step back. And then with the left arm, we're going to let the left arm sway back and forth. And as the arm sways back, we're going to let the palm of the hand turn towards the ceiling. And we're going to follow that with the gaze. And we're going to let the arm be nice and soft, so soft in the elbow, giving the arm to gravity. And then if that feels comfortable, we can make that movement so we're circling the arm forwards. I want to let some exhalations come out through the mouth. And then letting that go, and then letting the arm circle back. And then eventually letting go of that movement altogether. We're going to stay on the left side. Let's take the feet wider than the hips. I'm going to let the left arm sway across the front of the body. And then as the arm sways back, giving yourself a pat on the back. And then eventually letting go on that first side. Let's step the feet a little bit closer together, hip distance slightly wider. And feel the difference between the two sides. So that whole arm, sides of the ribs, shoulders, might feel very different. A bit buzzy, tingly, a bit more buoyant. And then let's come to the opposite side. So stepping the right foot back. Again, not a huge step. And then we're going to let this right arm sway back and forth. Remembering to let the palm of the hand turn up towards the ceiling as the arm sways back, keeping the elbow soft. And if all's well, and the arm circle forwards if that's comfortable. Again, you might want to let some exhalations come out through the mouth. Letting go of that and letting the arm swing back. And then eventually letting go of that movement on this second side. Let's step the feet wider than the hips. And we're going to sway the right arm across the front of the body. And then as the arm sways back, giving yourself a pat on the back. And then eventually letting go of that on the second side, bringing the feet a bit closer together, feeling the impact of that on the body and the breath. So grab your little raise, whatever that may be. So I'm going to step my left foot onto my raise. I'll show you on this side actually, because I want to just clear something up as well here. So stepping up onto my raise, and then I'm going to begin to let this right leg sway back and forth. Now it shouldn't be actually a big high long movement. It just needs to be quite a small sway back and forth, letting the leg be long. So I'm going to turn back to face you. So letting the legs sway back and forth. Again, just a small movement. The legs like a pendulum. So we're speaking to the deep psoas muscle, the diaphragm, which is going to help us to release the breath. And you might want to use a wall or a chair to help steady you here, that's absolutely fine. And then eventually letting that movement come back to a still place. Pause there for a moment. And then come into step down from your raise and feel the impact of that. And then let's come to the opposite side. So this time stepping up on the block with the right foot and coming to sway back and forth with the left leg. So think of the leg more as a pendulum, as opposed to kind of you having to kick the leg high and then kick it back. So the movement finds its own momentum. And then eventually letting that come back to a still place and wobbly on this second side. And coming down off your block from there. So get rid of your little raise. And then we're going to do some roll downs through the spine, and then we're going to have a little play in our sun salutation sequence. So bringing the feet again, roughly hip distance, letting the knees soften. And then we're going to let the chin draw in towards the chest, let the arms be heavy. And then bending the knees really generously here, we're going to roll down through the centre. Let the arms be heavy, let the back of the neck be long. And then lengthening down into the feet, bending the knees generously. So it's almost like you're sitting down to come back up. And then coming back up to standing. a slight turn over to one side. It doesn't need to be a huge amount, especially if there's any sort of niggles in the lower back. And if it doesn't feel comfortable, yeah, just keep going up and down through the centre. But if it is comfortable, a slight turn over to one side, and then we're going to let the chin again roll in towards the chest, and then bending the knees generously, we're going to roll down over one side. So the knees are still tracking straight ahead, but it's the spine that turns to the side. And then rolling back up. From there, turning to the opposite side again, letting the chin roll in towards the chest, bend the knees, letting the arms drape. Let's go another 2 rounds, yeah? So a centre side is 1 round. So we're going to go another 2 rounds. So drawing down through the centre, let the knees bend generously. Rolling back up. A slight turn to one side, letting the chin roll towards the chest, and then begin to bend the knees. A slight turn to the opposite side, letting the chin roll in towards the chest. And then 1 more round. And then letting go of that, coming back up to standing. So let's step towards the front of our mat. So we're going to do a little bit of work with the sun salutation sequence. Like I said, these kind of slow repetitive movements are really useful in helping to let go of that nervous energy but gather us back into a bit more of a focal point. I'm going to work through the sun salutation, sort of modified versions of the sun salutation. And each movement is optional, so I'm going to kind of go a step further with each round of the sun salutation. So if you find that there's a particular movement within that isn't agreeing with you, you can leave that movement out, that's absolutely fine. So we're going to be kind of adding in downward dog, lunges, planks, and we will do a little bit of a back bend, but I don't want to come up into a full upward dog. The reason being, I suspect, because we've been less mobile than what we normally would be, I suspect lower backs particularly might be a bit vulnerable at the moment, so I don't want to do that unless it's in a kind of one of our class settings. So, but if you're confident, you feel like that would be good for you, and you know that's something that you do practice yourself at home, then that's fine. Feel free to do that, but I'm not going to be offering that during this practice at the moment. So, coming towards the front of your mat. So we're simply going to start with this seed movement, and if all you do in this part of the practice is the seed movement, that is absolutely fine. You will totally get the benefit of that for this practice as well. So let's bring the hands into prayer position. Let the knees soften, so we're yielding down towards the earth. A little bow to the earth. Let the knees bend generously, and we're going to float the arms up, and then we're going to let the arms come wide, bringing the hands back to prayer position. So let's repeat that a few times. So a little bow to the earth, floating the arms up, letting the arms come wide, back to prayer position. Let's go 2 more. So I'm going to start adding in a forward bend and lunge here as well. I'm going to show you another variation in lunge for anyone who has any issues with the knees. It might be something that you prefer to do. So again, bring the hands to prayer position, a little bow to the earth. Let's float the arms up. This time I'm going to bring the arms wide, but we're going to let the knees bend really generously here. I'm going to bring my fingertips down towards the floor. I'm going to lift my heels and bend my knees even more, so I'm coming into this little crouch. I'm going to step my left foot back behind me. Now, if there's any issues in the knees for any reason, you can just keep with this high lunge here, so you don't have to lower the back knee in a sec. So if you would prefer to stay here, that's absolutely fine, using the fingertips or bringing the backs of the hands down to support you, or the palms of the hands. But if you want to, you can lower the back knee and untuck the toes. Letting the weight pour down into the feet, we're going to bring the hands onto the thigh if that's appropriate. If you're in a high lunge, you're just going to stay with the hands on the floor. And then if you wish to, drawing the arms up over the head. Again, if you're in a high lunge, you're simply going to stay with the hands down on the floor. A few breaths here. Bringing the hands back down, tucking the toes under on the back foot, lifting the knee, leaning into the back foot to step forwards. And then coming back up from there. Opposite side, so a little bow to the earth, floating the arms up, bringing the arms wide, bending the knees generously, fingertips towards the floor. Bend the knees even more, lift the heels. This time we're going to step the right foot back behind us. And then some of you might want to pause in this high lunge, or then some of you may want to continue by lowering the back knee, untucking the toes, letting the weight pour into the feet, and bringing the hands and the arms wherever's appropriate for you. Again, a few breaths here. Bringing the hands down, tucking the toes under on the back leg, lifting the knee, leaning into the back foot to step forwards. Coming up from there. So you might want to continue with that variation. The next time we go, I'm going to add in downward dog this time. So bringing the hands into prayer position. Yield into the earth. Let's float the arms up. Let's bring the arms wide, bend the knees generously. Fingertips towards the floor. Bend the knees even more, lifting the heels and stepping the left foot back. So you might want to stay in your high lunge, or you might want to bring the knee down and untuck the toes, bringing the arms and the hands wherever's appropriate for you. Bringing the hands back down, tucking the toes under on the back leg, lifting the knee, so we're back into our high lunge. And then using the hands to support you, you're going to step this right foot back into your downward dog. You might want to take your dog for a little walk here. You might want to make him a bit more of a still dog. I say that, but we're still letting the body move with the expression of the breath. So then from here, stepping the left foot either halfway or all the way to the front of your mat, leaning into the back foot to step forwards. Coming up from there. So we're going to go on the second side again, adding in downward dog. So a little bow to the earth. Let's float the arms up. Bring the arms wide, bend the knees generously. Fingertips towards the floor. Lift the heels, bend the knees even more, stepping the right foot back. And you're either going to stay in your high lunge or lowering the knee, untucking the toes, bringing the arms and the hands wherever's appropriate for you. Few breaths there. Lowering the hands, Tucking the toes under on the back leg, lifting the knee, using the hands to support you, stepping back into your downward dog. Stepping the right foot either halfway or all the way to the front of your mat, leaning into the back foot to step forwards. Coming back up from there. So the next round we're going to do, I'm going to add in plank. Again, if you want to leave that out, that's absolutely fine. At any point coming to rest down in child pose. Yeah, you know your bodies better than I do, especially through a video. So coming back to the front of your mat, bringing your hands to prayer position in the front of the chest. A bow towards the earth, so yielding towards the earth, floating the arms up. Bringing the arms wide, bend the knees generously, fingertips towards the floor. Lift the heels, bend the knees even more. We're going to step the left foot back. Staying in your high lunge or lowering the back knee, untucking the toes, bringing the arms and hands wherever's appropriate for you. Bringing the hands down, tucking the toes under on the back leg, lifting the knee, using the hands to support you. We're going to step back to downward dog. And then if you would like to, we can make the transition by shifting the weight forwards into plank. So lengthening, reaching back into the heels, lengthening into the hands. And then coming back up to your downward dog. And then stepping the left foot either halfway, all the way to the front of your mat, leaning into the back foot to step forwards. Opposite side, so a bow to the earth, floating the arms up. Bringing the arms wide, bend the knees generously, fingertips towards the floor. Lifting the heels, bend the knees even more so we can step the right foot back. Lowering the right knee or staying in your high lunge. Untucking the toes and again bringing the hands wherever's going to support you. So really letting the weight pour down into the feet. Bringing the hands down, tucking the toes under on the back foot, lifting the knee. I'm going to step that left foot back into our downward dog. Letting the weight come forwards now into our plank, reaching back into the heels, lengthening into the hands, finding that containment around the belly area so you're not falling into the lower back. Lifting up and back to your downward dog again, and then stepping the right foot either halfway or all the way to the front of your mat, leaning into the back foot to step forwards. Coming back up from there. So we're going to do one more round. This time I'm going to add in a little cobra pose. It's a little mini back bend. But again, if your back's feeling vulnerable in any way, give this bit a miss. You can pause at any point, come back to the front of your mat, or come down into child pose. So bringing the hands to prayer position. A little bow to the earth, floating the arms up. Bend the knees generously. Fingertips to the floor. Bend the knees even more, lifting the heels, stepping the left foot back. Either staying in your high lunge or lowering the knee, untucking the toes on the back foot and bringing the arms and the hands wherever's appropriate in your lunge. You might even want to come into your little cactus. It's another option. Bringing the hands down, tucking the toes under, lifting the back knee, and then stepping that right foot back into your downward dog. Coming forwards into plank if that's appropriate for you today. Back to your downward dog. Lowering the knees, so this is where we're going to go into a little back bend. So lowering the knees gently, keeping the toes tucked under, and we're going to make that little movement where we slide forwards onto the forearms. So my legs are still nice and active, yeah, they're not collapsed down. I'm letting the weight come into my forearms and I'm lengthening back with my elbows. And I'm finding the support of the breath. I don't know if you can see that, but as I inhale, there's like a little rounding of my back. And as I exhale, my elbows lengthen back and I can bring the back into a little bit more extension here. So it's a bit like our cat and cow pose. Widen the elbows, let the forehead come down. Bring the hands under the shoulders to support you, tuck your toes under. You're going to lift your bottom back towards your knees and you're going to lift back up into your downward dog. And we're going to step the left foot either halfway or all the way to the front of our mat, leaning into the back foot to step forwards. Coming back up from there. And then last side, so bringing the hands to prayer position. A little bow to the air, floating the arms up. Let's bring the arms wide, bend the knees generously. Lifting the heels, bending the knees even more, coming into our crouch, stepping the right foot back. And then either staying in your high lunge or bringing the knee down, untucking the toes, lengthening into the feet. Coming up into your lunge from there. Again, you might want to bring the hands into your little cactus shape. Bringing the hands down, tucking the toes under, lifting the knee and stepping the left foot back. Coming into our downward dog. Letting the weight shift forwards into plank. Coming back to downward dog. Lowering the knees, keeping the toes tucked under, bringing the bottom back to the heels. A little push from the feet so we can slide forwards onto the forearms as we release the legs. Coming into our little mini cobra pose. Bringing the elbows wide, forehead down. Hands under the shoulders to support you, toes tucked under, lift at the bottom, up and back. And then coming up off the knees, back to your downward dog. And then stepping the right foot either halfway, all the way to the front of your mat. Lean into the back foot to step forwards. Coming up from there. Let that settle, let that land. Feel the effect of that. Checking in with the breath. And then let's bring the hands back to prayer position. I'm going to step wide on my mat. So step wide on my mat, I'm going to lengthen into my legs. Let the weight pour into my feet, keeping the knees soft, letting the arms drape at the sides of the body. So we're going to come to work through a few of the standing poses, but in a bit more of a sequence. So let's turn the left toes in, I'll mirror you. So let's turn the left toes in, turn the right toes out. And we're going to come to triangle pose to begin with. So I'm going to begin to turn my pelvis, but keeping this connection into the back leg. I'm going to begin to turn my pelvis to look over this right foot. Yeah, the pelvis won't go all the way, but we're going as far as is comfortable. And then with this right hand, I'm going to place it wherever's appropriate. So it could be just below the knee, it could be in the middle of the shin, it could be the ankle. For some of us, it might be the floor. I'm around the ankle today, I think, so I'm going to stay there. I'm still keeping that connection into the back leg, and I'm being mindful that I'm not locking back into this front knee. So this front knee, even though it's straight, it's still soft. And then with my spare hand, I'm going to bring it under the right ribs. I'm going to trace across the front of the chest, and I'm going to begin to revolve the chest without disturbing the legs. I'm going to revolve the chest to begin to look forwards, and I'm going to let the arm reach out in line with the chest. So I'm not losing that connection with the chest, I'm maintaining that connection. So depending on how far the chest can revolve forwards, that's going to have an influence on where that hand and arm is. Yeah, so there's no point having the chest here and then trying to bring the arm back here. So trying to keep that agreement with the arm and chest. And then I'm going to roll back in. And I'm going to roll back out. Roll back in. So it's this intention of kind of letting go, but gathering back in. And then I might pause in this open phase for a couple of breaths. And then rolling back in. I'm going to bend this right knee, keeping the connection into the back leg. I'm going to come up from there. And then I'm going to bring my forearm down onto the right thigh. Again, keeping that connection into the back leg. And then my spare hand and arm, again, tracing across the front of the chest and opening up. Rolling back in. And opening up. Next time I open up, I might want to, or might not feel appropriate, but I might want to bring my arm more in line with the back leg now. A few breaths there. And then releasing that top arm, beginning to straighten that front leg. I'm going to come up from there and I'm going to bring the arms up over the head. And then I'm going to bend the knee as I draw the arms down. Again, finding, as we do with all these movements, a phase of the movement that favours an in-breath, a phase of the movement that favours an out-breath. And as we let that front knee bend, always being mindful that we're keeping that connection into the back leg as well. We're not losing that support. Next time we bend the knee and we begin to draw the arms down, we're going to keep the arms at shoulder height. We're going to turn the gaze to look out and beyond the right hand. A few breaths here. Releasing the arms. A little bit of weight into that front foot to bring us back to parallel the feet. Now before we do the second side, we're going to step back to the front of our mat and get a sense of how that feels on the two sides. So let's bring the hands back to prayer position. Let's open out wide on our mat again. Again, lengthening into the legs, pouring the weight into the soles of the feet, letting the knees be soft, letting the arms drape at the sides of the body, letting the hips rest back. And then we're going to take this to the opposite side. So again, I'm going to mirror you. I'm going to turn, you're going to turn the right toes in and the left toes out. So again, we're going to come back to triangle pose. So I'm going to turn the pelvis as much as I can to look over to this left foot. Being mindful I'm not locking that left knee. And then I'm going to place this left hand wherever's appropriate, and it might be different on this side to what the other side was, so being mindful of that, and then placing that hand wherever's appropriate for you. So it might be top of the shin, mid shin, towards the ankle, floor maybe. And then with that spare hand, I'm going to place it on the underside of the left ribs. And with minimal disturbance to the legs, minimal disturbance, we're going to trace that spare hand across the front of the chest as we begin to revolve the chest to face forwards, and the arm is going to follow the line of the chest. And then I'm going to roll back in. Ooh. And then there might come a point where you want to pause in that open phase. And then coming back. Let's bend that front knee, keeping that connection into the back leg. And we're going to place the forearm down onto the thigh. So we're coming into side angle pose now, Parsvakonasana. And then again, we're going to bring the hands onto the inside of the ribs. We're going to trace across the chest. And open out. So moving in and out, letting go, gathering in. And there might come a point where it feels appropriate to bring that arm over in line with the back leg. Few breaths there. And then releasing the top arm, a little bit weight to the front foot, bringing us up to straighten the leg as we draw the arms up over the head. Bending the knee, drawing the arms down. Next time we draw the arms down and bend that knee, letting the arms come to rest at shoulder level. Turning the gaze, look out and beyond the left hand. And then releasing the arms, a little bit of weight into that front foot to bring us back to parallel the feet. And then let's come to step back to the front of our mat. And again, feeling how that is on both sides of the body. So we're going to come to do a forward bend here. And I'm going to offer you one variation of a forward bend, but if you know that some of the other ones that we've worked with previously is a bit more suited to you at this moment in time, go ahead and do that. But this is what I'm going to offer you today. So it's a little bit more of an active forward bend. So my feet are just slightly wider than my hips here. And I am going to let my knees soften, as I always do. I'm going to bring my hands right into the tops of my hips. So hands right into the tops of my hips, and I'm going to let my hips rest back. So my tail begins to lengthen back, my hips rest back. And I think about lengthening out through the crown of my head. So I've got this real length in the whole of my spine here. So I'm lengthening out through the tail, my hips are resting back, but I'm also lengthening forwards through the crown of my head. I'm going to bring my hands to rest on my thighs. I'm going to draw my elbows in towards me, and as I do that, you might be able to see that my shoulder blades can then slide down my back. Ooh. Ooh. This is a really nice variation to do as well during the day if you're like sat at a desk or anything, just any time really. It's a nice variation to do, but particularly to reset the spine if the spine's been a bit rounded for whatever reason. And then coming up from there. So we're going to come to rest down in Shavasana, relaxation. So get whatever you need to get yourself set up and comfortable here. So pop on any extra layers, make sure you're going to be warm enough, grab a blanket. Most of you know what works for you, so get yourself set up. So it could be that the legs are lengthened out along the floor, it could be that the feet are on the floor and the knees are bent, or you could come into the variation where the feet are slightly wider than the hips with the knees falling in. Feet slightly wider than the hips and the knees are falling in and resting against each other. Another variation, which we did a couple of videos ago, is where we use our little makeshift bolster and come to lay on our front. And that's a really nice way as well to kind of focus on the front of the body a little bit more and feel that connection between the belly and the breath. So find a variation that is going to serve you at this moment in time. Make yourself as comfortable as you can possibly be, as always. And we're going to continue to read the sutras. So we're on around verse 30, I think, of part 1. Yes, we are, verse 30 of part 1. So once you're set up, making yourself as comfortable as you possibly can be. And we've been working with this theme today, haven't we, with this this idea of letting go, but also gathering in. And even in relaxation, even in our Shavasana, we can still work with this principle. So we can really give our weight and let ourselves be supported, let go to the weight, let go to the support that the ground offers us. But at the same time of letting go of everything, we can also gather up what that support has to offer us and be supported and sustained by that as well. So there's this sense of letting go the weight into the ground, but also receiving from that support as well. So once you're settled here, you'll continue to read the sutras. The mind will turn inward, and the obstacles that stand in the way of progress will disappear. These obstacles are illness, fatigue, doubt, carelessness, laziness, attachment, delusion, the failure to achieve samadhi, and the failure to maintain samadhi. They are distractions from the path of yoga. Such distractions make the body restless, the breathing coarse, and the mind agitated. They result in suffering. But they can be eliminated if the mind is repeatedly brought to a single focus. Very apt for today's practice, isn't it? I'll read that again for you. The mind will turn inward, and the obstacles that stand in the way of progress will disappear. These obstacles are illness, fatigue, doubt, carelessness, laziness, attachment, delusion, the failure to achieve samadhi, and the failure to maintain samadhi. They are distractions from the path of yoga. Such distractions make the body restless, the breathing coarse, and the mind agitated. They result in suffering, but they can be eliminated if the mind is repeatedly brought to a single focus. So I'm just going to give you a few moments to let yourself absorb whatever benefits you can from that. So letting some gentle movement return to the body, letting fingers and toes wriggle, letting the head, if it's comfortable, turn gently from one side to the other. And as always, if it feels appropriate, bringing the palms of the hands together and generating some heat by rubbing the hands together. And placing the hands either over the eyes or elsewhere that might benefit from that heat. And really slowly letting the eyes open beneath the palms of the hands if you've got them there. And maybe beginning to adjust to the light that's coming through the cracks of the fingers. Eventually bringing the hands away from the eyes, letting the eyes fully open. Becoming aware of the light in the room, any sounds, sensations. And then eventually gathering the knees in towards the chest, having a little rock from side to side if you're on your back. If you are laying on your front, you can press back into child pose. And then coming to roll over onto one side, spending a few moments resting on the side of the body. And then come in to bring yourself back up from there to a comfortable seated position. So we're going to end the practice there for this video. As always, it is so lovely to be able to do these for you, and I think it's keeping me sane as well. So a massive thank you for that. like I said, I woke up riddled with anxiety this morning, and I'm still feeling it, but I do feel a bit more focused after the practice that I've just shared with you. It's pretty much exactly the same practice I did myself this morning, so hopefully, um, it's of some benefit. I suspect we'll know by the time you're watching this video kind of what lies ahead, but it might just give us a bit of steady ground to face that head on. So as always, if you want to say hello, always drop me a text, an email. It's really lovely to hear from you. I hope you're all safe and well. I still miss you loads and loads. Can't wait till we can all practice in our space together. But I'll leave it there for now. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.